is considered as a non-performing asset. But I would like maybe that will come in future topics. But I would like to understand how this will affect like the functioning of a financial institute if they have a lot of non-performing assets, and like how can we understand this, like looking at their balance sheet, or how can we understand this point from looking at their data sheets?
Okay, so two questions, right? So first thing is, how does it impact them? So basically, take for example a bank. They have lent 100 rupees. Okay, so they have lent 100 rupees to me, for example, or to a bunch of people rather. And after this loan was so for 10 years, all are for the sake of simplicity, assume they are all home loans, and 10 rupees each has been lent to 10 different people. Each person is paying 10% interest. So each person has to pay 1 rupee as interest every yearly, and whatever principal they will be repaying. Say 10 rupees of principal they will be repaying. No, 10 rupees is the total loan amount. So 2 rupees as principal they will be repaying, and in 5 years they'll clear the whole loan, something on those lines. Basically, what happens is after 2 years, everybody pays properly. Third year, out of those 10, 2 people stop paying the interest. And after 3 months, like I explained last time, there are certain rules for each bank, usually governed by RBI guidelines in India and other central banks in other countries, where basically once they have not paid the interest for 3 months, they'll be classified as a NPA, which is a gross NPA. Even after 6 months, so then they will start calling them, follow up, etc. They will do this for another 3 months, and even if after 6 months they still don't pay, then this will be considered as a net NPA. And there are two components to it. One is not repaying the interest component, and the other one is not repaying the principal also. Now, how it affects a bank is, a bank has lent 100 rupees. How did it lend 100 rupees? It lent by taking deposit from people like you and me. So a bank got a total deposit of say 120, and out of which 100 they have lent out. On the deposit that they have taken 120, they may be paying say 5% interest. So 6 rupees as interest they have to keep paying every year. And this 100 rupees that they have lent out, they will be charging 10%. So they will be getting 10 rupees as interest. So the difference between 10 and 6, that 4 is the profit of the bank.
Yes.
That also, after that, they will also have to deduct salary, etc. So the net which is left with the bank is only 2. So when those people to whom they have lent, they don't pay the interest to bank, so that 10 rupees will reduce to maybe 7 or 6. But bank is obligated to pay interest to the depositor. So they will, if they get only 6 and they pay 6 as interest, so interest earned by the bank is 6 and interest paid by the bank is also 6. So the net the bank is left with 0. But even with 0, they have to still pay the salaries, they have to still pay the rent, they have to pay all the other expenses. So the bank will actually start making losses, which is not good, because if the bank itself is not making any profit, how will it survive? How will it grow? The whole concept of this business is that the bank keeps getting additional deposit, they keep lending it so that the money keeps circulating in the system. If that stops, everything stops. How you will know it from the balance sheet? The bank has to call it out clearly. So like we were discussing in our previous session, they are mandated to call it out. We can look at one of the balance sheets. I think we were going through this uh, kind of investor statement. I think do you remember, Akash, we were on which page?
I think we were on the 4th page.
4th or much higher? No, 11th or something, right?
I think we were probably on 8th or more than that.
Okay.
I remember somewhere around 8th or something. But what we were going through was more of an investor presentation. So I will show you the financial results also for the last quarter. So that we can do it in one of the other sessions.
Okay.
So, but did I answer your question?
Yes, but on the balance sheet, you said it will be reflected where? I did not catch that.
No, it will be there on the P&L, so that when we are seeing the P&L and balance sheet, I will show you.
Okay.
And Nishant, one follow-up question over here. From where to get these balance sheets of the financial institutions, or let's say for any other company? Do they publish it somewhere on a common location, or they publish it on their website or something?
Yeah, so all listed firms which are listed on any stock exchange are mandated by law to publish their financial results on their website. So I had shown this in one of my earlier sessions. So I will show it now through a screen share.
Mhm. Okay.
So I will start sharing my screen. Okay, this one I will show you by screen share. So if you go to HDFC Bank's website,
Mhm.
you will have something called About Us. In that you will have investor relation. Let me open a new one. So if you go to HDFC Bank website, it's slow. Let it load up. So generally there will be a section called About Us, and in that you will have investor relationship where they'll be publishing. Now some companies are very good. They give a lot of information. Some are not so good. Their presentations are not that great, and all of that. Every company has a different. Basically, when you go to About Us, you will have something called investor relation. If you can go to financial information, and here you will have annual report. So this is published yearly. Financial result is published quarterly. If you click here, view all, you will have each of the quarters. So here you can filter and see. So last quarter was Q4 of 2020, which is Jan, Feb, March 2020. So that is why this is the latest one. So here again they have published. There is a conference call, so you can review the call, what they spoke, what are the questions asked by different analysts. All of that. We can go through each one in detail actually.
Okay. And one more thing, Nishant, do these bank financial institutions also uh, share the information about where they have invested their capital, like in what all equities and in which all companies?
Yes, yes, they should be doing it. So that is when we go through a balance sheet, we'll come to know how much they have disclosed.
Okay.
But if you own shares in any company, you can always call their investor relationship guy or email them and ask for additional information.
Okay. So, and they are bound to reply to that, right? They are
Yes,
obligated to reply. Okay.
once you are a shareholder. If you are not a shareholder, they may avoid, but
Okay.
once you are a shareholder, they have to give you every information that you ask for.
And by shareholder, it means that even if I have only one share, I can ask that information.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
But ideally, if they are a publicly listed company, everything should be available because only then public will invest. So
Yeah.
it should be very easily accessible. It's in their best interest.
Right. Why I ask this question is because so many financial institutions invest in shady companies. I'm not sure how they do that. Probably they may be having some sort of backdoor for doing that. But because of those, many of their loans get into the NPAs. And just like example of Yes Bank or the PNC Bank.
Yeah, but that is different, right? So they actually lie on that. So if somebody is lying on the numbers, then you can't do anything, right? There is something called off balance sheet items and all. So those are other nitty-gritty. So that's on a different topic. We'll go. So there is always a way to fool the people if somebody is really hell bent on doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, good question. Akash, I remember having covered this slide, or were we on this slide? So Nimit, just to give you a background, we had started this around 2 sessions back, and we are going through this. So this is basically like an investor presentation that HDFC Bank has done. I don't know. All of you
Yeah,
guys can see my screen, right? This screen, I remember talking very
this
clear.
one we had finished.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think there was a next one with this pie form. Even this one we had finished.
Okay.
Can you go down?
This one also I remember discussing.
Yes, we discussed this one also. We also discussed their share NPA. Yes, this is done.
Yes, this is done.
Loss. This one probably is not done. The one
Yeah.
before. The one before. So we did not discuss ROA and EPS. And even this one floating provision we have not discussed. This one, yes.
So we were on this slide only, okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, fine. So here,
I'm not sure because last at the end I had missed also, but I think we were still somewhere with this part.
Yes, we had just discussed NPA, I think, and you said, Nishan, that we will discuss this topic as the last thing for the day. That was NPA, non-performing assets. So you just explained what was a non-performing asset.
and so we will do this slide fully, okay?
Yes.
So basically, if you see here, this part here, this talks about NPA percentage. So NPA is non-performing asset. And as I said, there are two categories, gross and net. Gross means people have not paid for 3 months or 4 months their interest, but we are following up and we are confident that they will repay it. Net means we have done the follow-up and still they are not paying. So this is as a total of advances made by the bank. So in the year 2017, out of 100 crore given as loan, 1.05, so around 1 crore 5 lakh was a gross NPA, which was doubtful, and around 33 lakh was fully gone, means very, very difficult to get it back, which is okay. In a standard rule for a bank, anything below 3% for a net NPA is okay. Once it goes more than 3%, it is considered very high risk. Now, in an ideal world, okay, go on.
Nishant, quick one question. So this 33%, 0.33% of net NPA, is it included in the 1.05 gross NPA as well, or it's a separate?
No, it is always included. So basically,
It's always.
out of 100 crore, 1 crore 5 lakh is doubtful. But I am confident that after follow-up and whatever, 72 lakh will come back. 33 lakh is totally gone case.
Okay.
So basically, in my balance sheet, so in my P&L, what I will be doing is I'll be making a provision. So if you see below there, given the numbers, how much is the provision? So if you see here, it's showing in billion rupees. So 70 billion rupees, which is around 7,000 crores. So for 7,000 crores, they have made a provision. 7,000 crore will not come back. So the total loan book of HDFC Bank will be probably 100 times that. So 7 lakh crore is probably the total loans. So they're assuming that 1%, 7,000 crore will not come back. And in case it comes back, then it becomes a profit. Okay. So the trend here from 2017 to 2018 is rising. And again in 2019, it is rising, which is not good. For net NPA, it has increased from 2017 to 18, but in 2019, it has come down, which is a good sign. Now, because of all this crisis going on in the market, it is assumed that in 2020, this 1.36 will go to 2. It will increase for sure. But if it goes to 5, then it will be a big problem. It will be a red flag. But that we'll only get to know once the year is out. You see my point?
Yes.
Okay, so my prediction is it will go up, but the key is how much. And the good banks will be the ones where it goes up less. So if it goes up from 1.2 for HDFC, 1.5 or even 1 to 4 for Kotak, then HDFC is performing better, something like that.
So why do you say that above 5 will be a red flag?
No, I said above 3 is considered a red flag. That is just the market rule. But I'm saying here I didn't mean 5 as a number. What I meant is if it's like a relative decline, right? So if HDFC Bank had 1.36% as gross NPA in 2019, because of all the issues in 2020, it will increase, but it should increase with a less percentage, right? The lower the increase, the better it is. So say if HDFC Bank performs amazingly well and it increases from 1.36 to 1.5, I'm just talking about gross NPA here, then they have done a good job. Whereas there might be another competitor, say Kotak, where currently the gross NPA is below HDFC Bank. It is 1, but they are not able to manage 2020 well and it goes to 2.2, which means HDFC performed better than Kotak. It could be reverse also. For HDFC Bank today it is 1.36 and for Kotak it is 2. But in 2020 for HDFC Bank it goes from 1.36 to 5. But for Kotak it goes from 2 to 3.5. So both have increased their gross NPA, but HDFC has increased it at a much faster rate, which means HDFC made bad loans, more bad loans in the year. What is NPA? NPA is basically giving loans to bad people, whether it be retail, bad borrowers, not people. Let's not talk about people, it's borrowers. Whether it be corporate borrowers or an individual borrower. For whatever reason, they made a bad choice because whenever a bank is giving a loan, it is taking a risk. It is assuming that you will pay it back. So there are two kinds of loans banks give. One is secured loan, one is unsecured loan. Secured loan means they have some kind of guarantee, like a home loan. It's a secured loan because if you don't pay back, they'll take your home. And home is by and large at least a stable asset. If they give you a loan to buy a land is usually appreciating, so it's fine. But if they give you a loan to buy a car, they give you a 10 lakh loan, and if you don't pay back, even if they take your car, it is only worth 5 lakhs. They will still lose money. So the banks never want people to default on car loans and all. And then there are other loans where there is no security at all, like a personal loan. I give you a 1 crore personal loan, there is no security. If you don't pay back, it's a full loss for the bank. You see the point?
Yes.
Yeah, and Nishant, one more question. So this an NPA that is being presented over here, does this include the default on the payments of interest or default on the payment of the principal amount as or both?
Both.
Okay.
And one important thing, even if something is classified as a net NPA, it is based on certain criteria that they followed up, and after 6 months also you didn't pay. But it doesn't mean that they will stop following up. Even with net NPA, the company will try to recover. And then there are certain people called recovery agent. If total amount due from say Akash is 1 crore, and after 6 months of follow up he is not paying back, say 1 crore is principal and interest component is 50 lakhs, and then another penalty is added which is 20 lakhs. The total outstanding from Akash is 1.7 crores. And in case after multiple follow-ups he is not paying up, sometimes what HDFC Bank will do or other banks will do is they will go to a recovery agent and they will sell that to the recovery agent. So they will tell the recovery agent, okay, you go and chase Akash for 1.7 crores, you give me 1 crore just now to settle it. So that recovery agent will give 1 crore to bank and bank will close that account, and then the recovery agent will start following up with Akash for full amount.
Okay.
So that is also another business that many people do. Or even HDFC can have a separate arm which does that.
Okay. And one final question. These numbers which are 20 for 2017, 2018, and 2019, these are year-on-year basis or the cumulative basis?
This is not very clear here. So I am assuming these are yearly numbers. So basically in 2017, they made a provision of 70 billion. In 2018, they made a higher provision, and 2019 even higher. So I don't think so. It's cumulative. It's yearly numbers.
Yeah, it seems it's clear. It seems that it is a year-on-year basis because 1.05 is amounting to 7,000 crores and 1.636 is amounting to approximately 14,000 crores. So it seems to be year-on-year basis and not the cumulative one.
No. From where you got that number?
This one, I'm looking into the chart 1 and chart 2. So see that in chart 1, the gross NPA is 1.05%, which is in the below chart, it is amounting to 7,000 some crore rupees, right?
Okay, fine.
Now, if these numbers are cumulative ones in the above chart from 2017 till 2019, that amounts to 1.36, right? then it will be equivalent growth in the number of the money which is on the bad
No,
loan.
no, no, no. That's not what they are doing. So even if I look at 1% is 7,000 crores, 1.3 will be 9,000 crores, and 1.36 will be again 9,000 crores. But if you see the provision for 2019 is much higher. The provision is around 12,000 crores. So that's not it. Here they have made different
Okay.
kinds of provisions, right? So they have made provision for gross NPA, which is highlighted in this color. Now
Okay.
this chart is not very, it's a little messy one. They have given a bar graph also, so that is why. But if you see the gross NPA, that number is not clear. Then they have made some specific provisions, which is for some specific accounts. There is a general provision. So they have made 4 kinds of provision. So that is why it is not very clear. But basically, by and large, it is always dependent on, say, so as I said, the total loan is say 1 lakh crores, for example, which I have to recover from the market. That is the total loan that I have given. I mean, I'm expecting that 2% will not come back. So that 2,000 crore, I will make a provision in my balance. Making a
Yeah,
provision basically means that that much I am counting it as a loss. My profit is reduced by that much amount.
okay.
And the banks price, so the whole pricing of a loan, right, that is done in this way. So basically, if I have lent 1 lakh crores, my cost of funds will be only 3%. And I will also assume that 2 lakh, 2% will not come back. So only 98,000 crore will come back. So in 98,000 crore, what percentage of interest shall I charge to ensure that I make a good profit and also pay salary, etc.? That's how they price the loan. So on that 98,000 crores, the bank may come up with a number of 7%. That is how your interest rate is decided. And then the banks play also a lot. So when you take a home loan, if it's a floating rate, when interest rate is increased by RBI, immediately next week only they will increase your rates. But when RBI reduces rates, they take 3 months to reduce. So that way they get extra interest from you for 3 months. Not just you, there are thousands of borrowers like you. A lot of things banks do like that because people, there was a research done and it was found out that people are very reluctant to change their banks or their loans. So if generally if you take a 20-year home loan, people don't switch. People who are very, very proactive may switch once or twice, but most people will not switch. Fine. So now this is the key number that we need to see. So if you see again, this is on a very complicated chart, but basically if I convert these, you need 1000, this is around 12,000 crore. So I don't know, but if you see there is a consistent increase. So generally HDFC Bank has given 30%, 25 to 30% net profit growth over a 10-year period. Now again, as they say, past performance is no guarantee of future performance, but it's only when you're investing in companies, the factors that you would look at is market size, very important. So that is one thing that is against HDFC Bank, that their market size is already very big. So how much more can they grow as a market? So the whole market has to grow for them to grow because they already control a large chunk of the market. But other than that, their performance has been very consistent. Okay. Next is return on assets. So this is again a very interesting statistics. This is primarily used for banks, not for other for financial institutions. Other industries don't use so much, like IT and all. They won't talk about return on asset. So asset is basically the total money that a bank has, and on that HDFC is able to earn around 2%, which may seem low, but it's okay because they have huge amounts of money. But the key metric that we usually look at is called return on equity, ROE. That I will show you when into the balance sheet, how to calculate. Yeah, this one is more interesting. So if you see earning per share, I don't understand this from 2015 to 16, what happened? Suddenly their profit doubled, more than doubled, almost tripled. So I don't know what happened here, or maybe this is a typo or something, because this and this other number don't match up. If you see here, the graph shows only slight increase. Here, how does it show such a large increase? I don't understand. Even uh, the graph is different, right? It is close to 40. I think this is a
Yeah,
typo. This should be
yeah, it seems
37.
to be 37. Yeah, it seems to be 37 instead of 17.
Yeah, so it should probably be 37. So this is 37 to 48 is 30%, around 11. Here it was 20%, again around 10. so around 20%, and here again 10. Yeah. So around 15 to 20% is what they have been consistently giving. When a company's profit or EPS, Nimit and Neha, you are aware of EPS, right? Akash has gone through this.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you can explain a bit more, I mean, earning per share means that how much profitability is coming out from the investment for the HDFC share price, right? On a year-on-year basis, right? Does that mean?
So earning per share means basically say HDFC Bank has 1 crore shares in the market, and totally they made profit of, say in 2019 they would have made a profit of 78.6 crores. When you divide 78.6 crores by 1 crore, you get 78.6. So it depends on what is the number of shares in the market. So the formula for EPS is total profit for the year divided by the number of shares outstanding. And this is
But
net profit.
how does this help me?
It helps you in a way, right? Like you buy share only, right? You buy 1 share. So you 10 shares in the year 2000.
Hey, Nishant, your voice is gone. It's not audible anymore.
Can you hear me?
It's coming from very far away.
Is it better now?
A little bit better. I'm not sure if others are also facing the same problem.
Now, how is it?
Same. But it's okay. I mean, we can do that.
It was fine till now, right? I didn't change anything.
Yeah, it was absolutely fine till now, but suddenly it seems that it's going away. Your voice is coming from far.
Okay. And I'll try to speak a little louder. So what I was saying is, say you bought the share in 2015 and you bought it at say 500 rupees, and each share was generating a profit of 37. Generally, how EPS determines the share price is, okay, so I had explained this in the first session. So how EPS, one second.
Sure.
So basically, Nimit, it gives you an idea about like how your share is performing in the market. That's what I understand. So like, for example, when you bought the share, let's say for 50 rupees or 37 rupees in 2015, it should like it is earning per share. That means basically your share will increase in the next year to 48. So that is showing a positive growth. Let's say that your every share, whichever is there, it will be increasing accordingly. So right, for example, this is a very healthy chart which we see right now for HDFC. Like for every year, the earning of the share is going on increasing. So as Nishan just told that it is
Can
like the
you
net
guys hear
income.
me?
Yes, Nishant, we can hear you now.
Okay, fine. So let me explain to you earning per share, price to earning ratio, and share price. So look at HDFC Bank in 2015, its earning per share was 37 rupees. Now in the last 3 years prior to 2015, like 2013, 14, 15, 12, 11, maybe 5 years, it was growing at 25% per year. The earning per share was growing at 25% per year. Are you with me?
Yes, with
Okay.
you.
So in this scenario, what a healthy market will do is, if your earning per share is growing at 25% per year, that is called your net profit growth rate. The market will assign you a multiple of 25, which is price to earning multiple. So basically, the share price of HDFC Bank in 2015, fair value of HDFC Bank will be 37 into 25.
Sorry, 37 into 45.
37 into 25.
Okay, 37 into 25. Okay.
You understood from where 37 came?
Yeah, 37 is this the earning per share of year 2015, right?
Exactly.
And then
From where
and then the
25 came?
Yeah, in the previous 5 years, the earning per share was consistently around 25 rupees. So that's why it is coming as
Not
25.
25 rupees. The growth rate was 25%.
Oh, yes, yes. The growth rate was 25%, right?
So the historical growth rate was 25%, and the market expects, the future can only be an expectation. The market expects that HDFC Bank will continue to grow its EPS by 25% for the next 3-4 years at least. So the market
Mm-hmm.
assigns a PE, what we call a PE, price to earning multiple of 25 to HDFC Bank. Your share
Okay.
price will be 37 into 25. Okay.
Okay.
So
Now
let's assume yeah, so you can do the math and that will be your share price. So 37 into 25 is whatever. So 37 into 25. So you would have bought it at 925 rupees.
Mm-hmm.
In 2016, HDFC Bank met its target and it grew its profit to 48.8, which you can do the math. 48.8 minus 37 divided by 37 into 100. So it grew its profit by 31%. So it exceeded its target of 25%. So now market will continue with the same P of 25. Actually, it will increase, but I'm saying hypothetically, it will continue with 25 as the P and the new price will be 1220. So how
Mm-hmm.
you benefited is when the earning per share went up, your investment also went up. Your investment went up from 925 to 1220.
Makes sense. And this is, I mean, this is very good information for me because I'm hearing and learning this for the first time. And when we say this is year on a year basis, but the share market works on a daily and probably in a second to second basis. So does this calculation apply on a second to second basis as well in the market?
No, this applies only for long-term investors. So that is what we call value investors. The second per second or day by day market is driven by news, whether good news, bad news, rumors, lot of other intangibles. So that is just that is why it is said, right? If you are trading, it is kind of gambling. But if you are